We'll say good evening. Thanks for joining us. Um, Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, the Board Secretary caused notice of the meeting to be given to the public and the press on January 6, 2025. The public comment format for this meeting is as follows. Attendees wishing to comment during the public sessions will state their name and address. The President of the Board will recognize the attendee at the appropriate time. All of the board's policies and regulations related to public participation in board meetings shall remain in effect, including but not limited to the presiding officer's ability to limit each statement made by a participant to a 3-minute duration. Mrs. Callis, would you please call the roll?
Vice President Rubin?
Here.
Mr. Fernandez?
Here.
Mrs. Kelly?
Present.
Mrs. Murphy?
Here.
Mrs. Rinaldi?
Here.
Mrs. Silva?
Here.
Mrs. Turnbull?
Here.
Mrs. Wishna?
Here.
And President Gamerikian.
Here, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Callis, do you have any communications for us?
I do. In your board packet, you received articles on the following topics. School board's recommendations on CTE in a report called New Dimensions in Career and Technical Education, election petition bill that becomes law, and school ethics decisions, as well as state and federal acts and decisions affecting schools in New Jersey. New Jersey School Boards also has new programs and conferences and upcoming webinars, so if anyone would like to join, please let me know so I can register you. This is also a reminder, if you have not completed your Governance 1 training and you're a new board member, you have within the first 90 days to do so. Everyone else has until the end of the year. Also, I sent out disclosures, logins, and pins to everyone. If you have not received it, please let me know. You have until, if you're new, you should have done it already and you know. But if you haven't, you have until April 30th to fulfill that requirement. I also have addenda for tonight's meeting. This would go under Board Governance number 32, a revised district calendar for 24-25.
Dr. Goldberg.
All right.
Oh, you want to? Yeah, that would be fine. Thank you.
I move to approve the minutes for both the executive and regular meeting on January 27th, 2025.
Moved by Mrs. Rubin and seconded by Mrs. Turnbull. Any discussion? Any abstentions? Yeah. So Mr. Fernandez and Mrs. Murphy. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Minutes are accepted and approved. Now, Dr. Gold. Hi, how are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so tonight we're going to start with our student representative report. We're going to move into then some community updates, agenda highlights, calendar of events, and then we have Miss Jean Cleary from the School Boards Association, New Jersey School Boards Association, who is going to be doing our annual board ethics training. So very welcome to Ms. Cleary, and we'll go ahead and get started and kick it off with Sophie. We'd love to hear what's going on.
Oh, okay, now it's working. Hi, everyone. Okay, so this one's a little short tonight. So, Dayton's it's been a crazy few weeks. So, huge shout out to our student of the month, Amelie Majewski. So, here's just some PSAs from Mr. Teleska. Testing is coming up in the following months. You'll be required to leave your jackets, backpacks, food, electronic devices, except your iPads, in your lockers. If you forget your locker combination or have any concerns, please come to the main office and let them know. And please don't wait right before testing to make sure you can access your locker. For all seniors from the guidance department, please complete the local scholarship application and return it to Miss Siri by March 3rd. If the application is not returned, you will not be eligible for local scholarships offered at Jonathan Dayton. And also check the website and stop by guidance to see some scholarships that are offered. Also, this is a big request to seniors to update their Naviance account as they hear from colleges accepted, denied, waitlisted, deferred, etc. So from Student Council, the class of 2028, so this is your freshmen, have many fundraisers upcoming in the next few months. So they made about $275 from the bake sale and $260 from a Panera fundraiser and $650 from selling shirts. So in total, they have close to $1,200, which is pretty insane. And they continue to make more upcoming events in March and a Chipotle fundraiser in April. Your class of 2027 has been consistently selling bagel sticks every week, and they have been the biggest turnout. And additionally, on February 27th, they're hosting a volleyball versus football game in the main gym to raise additional money for their class, and these two sports games will compete against each other in a volleyball match. This event's really fun, so I think you should go. I truly do think you should, but whatever.
What was it again?
Volleyball, it is on February 27th. It's really funny. The football players are kind of funny with that. At, I think it's at 6, but I'm pretty sure it's at 6, but it doesn't say. Your class of 2026 had a meeting with the senior class to discuss prom, and they discussed giving out Rice Krispie treats as their prom favor, and they had another Rice Krispie treat sale, and they sold out. Your class of 2025, so it's your seniors. They did meet with the juniors for prom, and they are trying to figure out to get like photo booths and ice cream stations for prom, and they're just trying to figure that out financially. Now for sports. Sports is a little abbreviated tonight. Huge shout out to the girls basketball for making the first round in the state tournament, and this takes place at 4 p.m. in the main gym. Now for track. So track had a really big week. They finished 8th with Jules Keller in the pole vault, Noel Morado in the 55-meter dash, and Faith Alexander in the high jump, and all finished 5th and qualified for the Group 1 state championship. The boys finished in 2nd place as the runner-up and scoring 49 points. Matt Ware scored 18 points by finishing 2nd in the 1,600 meter and winning the 3,200 meter with Chris Jules, was also the section champion in the 55-meter hurdles and the 4th in school history. Now they had another meet on the 8th. Noel Morado finished 18th in the 55-meter dash. Chris Jules finished 4th in the 55-meter hurdles, and the boys 4x400 relay finished 13th. Matt Ware finished 3rd in the 3,200 by finishing in the top 3 automatic qualifying state points in the meet of the championships on Sunday, the March 2nd. So some Jersey Mike's Player of the Week, Kelsey Chacha won for swim, Jules Keller, Jonathan Casey, and Chris Jules won for track, Penelope Krieger and Tori Turner won for basketball, Juliana Raymond won for cheer, and a special shout out to Emil Dillard by being the Player of the Week not once but twice, and also scoring 1,000 points. That's like a big thing. And that's what's going on in Dayton in like a condensed format.
Thanks. I have a couple of those little celebrations again because like they're big deals. Also, we've had, did you mention Model UN traveled to Boston?
Yes.
And then we recently had Model UN traveled to compete at Boston College, Boston University.
I think it was Boston University.
I think it was Boston University too. We put the little video that was made on social media, and then we had the Quiz Bowl was last weekend in the snow as everybody was holding their breath. That was held at Livingston High School. So a lot of really exciting things.
Yes.
Way to go. All right, and I've seen the CHS. Clearly, I have my daughter's high school situation, but the JDHS commits Instagram is looking like it's starting to get a little traction.
Yeah.
So
we had one last night. Really happy for it, and I'm sure more are starting to come in the next couple weeks. I know of some that are gonna also start coming in the next few weeks.
So we'll carefully watch for when you get your official own Instagram posts or where you commit, and we'll celebrate. But for families that don't know about it, following on Instagram, the JDHS JDHS. It's JDHS commits 2025, I think. It usually has JDHS and then it's like underscore commits
I
2025.
can tell you, it's like,
If anybody wants to know where our kids are going to college, it's a great resource and a great opportunity to celebrate as a community. And so thank you so much, Sophie, for filling us in. There was also a blood drive.
yes, so there was also a blood drive that was also very successful, and I think they're trying to get another one up. It just also figures on participation from the last one, and I know like seniors, if you donate a certain amount of times, you get a quart at graduation.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really amazing. Okay. So thank you so much once again. I'm going to move on.
It's JDHS 25 commitments.
Okay. I got my numbers out of order. JDHS 25 commits. No underscores, just all straight through. All right. There you go. So huge congratulations to those families. I can't imagine how fabulous I will feel on that day that I get to post that some decision has been made, and I know that you're looking forward to doing that at some point in the future. I am now going to share.
Not on the commits page yet. I'm really committed. Check with. Oh yeah, I'm still waiting for teams.
Okay.
Yeah. You're like, I'm going somewhere.
All right, so welcome to, once again, the board meeting. As a reminder, as we start, we are working always to cultivate compassionate and extraordinary learners, and one of the highlights of having Sophie here is the example that she gives of that. Our mission is to challenge every student through meaningful, engaging experiences, empowering all students to flourish and contribute in an evolving world. I've already given you an update about what our overview is for tonight, but we're going to just take a little moment of celebration. FMG students, some of these are fun things that are happening in our schools. FMG students in Miss David's class adopted animals that were impacted by global warming through the World Wildlife Foundation, and they identified class animals. And if you are visiting JDHS, you can see what kind of animals they chose. On Valentine's Day in the elementary schools was a very packed day. It was so much fun. I was hanging out at Walton. And we had 100 days, we had Valentine's. It was amazing. I have to say the staff participation was incredible. And just it was a really so much fun at the elementary schools. It was hilarious and fabulous. So a couple things in case you missed it. Senior Angie Gatto signed with Sacred Heart. She's our third D1 sign this year, which is huge for us. And as was noted, Emil Dillard scored 1,000 points, which was a really huge occasion. What was really fabulous about that was that the Springfield Netties were in attendance, and they got to cheer on Emil. And it was one of those games where everybody knew that every single point was getting it just a little closer. And it was really, really terrific to see. The team really worked hard. They weren't successful in that, but only by a couple points. And it was a very well played game. It was 1 point. Was that where it ended up? I thought it was one or 2 points. It was tight. It was like down to one shot that everybody. But there was so much to celebrate that didn't. As you can see, I'm celebrating Chris Jules and Matt Ware for their incredible placement at the NJSIA sectionals, continuing the JDHS track and field. Matt, I believe, is a senior. He's a class of 25. Yep. In February, Caldwell School did this incredible collection of cereal boxes. It's their chain of kindness. They collected over 1,000 cereal boxes, and then they put it into rose and made a domino train challenge that went throughout the hallway and the gym, and with the chain reaction showing that just one bit of kindness can really spread. And then it was all donated to the food bank, to the Hillside Community Food Bank. So huge thanks to the Caldwell family community who all came together to support that, and congratulations to the students for really making a difference. Just as a note, this last month we had a lot of celebrations, and students have celebrated Happy Lunar New Year. While I was there on the 100th day and Valentine's, Miss Riley's preschoolers were running through the hall with the snake that they created in honor of Lunar New Year. So when I say it was a fun day, it was really just everywhere you looked was joy. And then we've also like to thank the Swain family for being one of the families that have come together. And they went to Miss Leo's classroom at Walton also to share about Garrett Morgan's most famous invention, the stoplight. I learned in one of the separate classes about that Garrett Morgan was like a person that invented everything, like completely random things. And I always thought how cool it would be to get to actually say you were an inventor, and then to be able to invent something that like 100 years later people are still using. It's pretty cool. So a huge thanks to our local families who help us elevate these celebrations. Tonight on the board agenda, one of the pieces that has been added is an updated calendar for this school year. As you know, we had to cancel the professional development that was originally scheduled in February. This professional development time period is actually really important. Especially, I'm going to say every year. As many of you know, I've been working on the literacy task force at the state level. And one of the key pieces that when we're looking at how are we moving literacy professional development is an incredibly important part of it. And also what you may remember is that this is the first year of a new ELA curriculum. And so that time that we'd originally scheduled was going to be for professional development, and we didn't want to lose that opportunity. So we are we've changed the calendar to move that professional development to March 19th. I know that the weather is still not predictable, so we are still taking a chance, but we don't want to lose that opportunity. So Wednesday, March 19th, all schools, early dismissal. There will be additional communication, but for those of you that communicate with the broader community, if we can please do everything we can to let everybody know. We understand that it's an inconvenience for families. We really do. So we don't make this decision hastily, but we also know that in order to help move our students forward and our education forward, having a time specific to professional learning is really critical. Also, there was some confusion due to a typo on the previous iteration of the calendar in regards to inclement weather days. And so just so that everybody knows, June 19th is now currently, and that still asterisks still remain because we are not done with this school year. It is only February, so I hope I'm not tempting fate, and if I do, you all will remind me in future years not to ever talk about it again. But right now, because of the inclement weather day, students will be in school on the 18th, and the 19th is the last day of school. It doesn't impact any of the graduations; those remain, and the new calendar and if the board approves the calendar as proposed tonight, that will take the place on the website for our families. Other events in our calendars, just as a reminder, February 27th, we have early dismissal, and February 28th, we have a delayed opening that's for the elementary parent-teacher conferences. March 18th, as a reminder, office hours with me at Chisholm Center. March 19th is what we just spoke about, that early dismissal, and April 14th, if you don't have it on your calendar, we're closed for a spring break. Before I finalize, I just wanted to take a moment and highlight a couple pieces that are in tonight's board agenda. Specifically in it's a big section, Section K, finance, facilities, and security. And most specifically, you'll see numbers 28, 29, and 30. All of these we're really excited to see moving forward. First of all is the direct install program. Ms. Callis, can you just take a couple minutes and share with everybody what's happening with that direct install, because it's a really terrific opportunity that's going to be of great benefit to our schools.
Sure. So JCP&L and M&M Energy Solutions, that's who they have contracted with to come out and do a full assessment of our needs outside of referendum. This includes boiler replacements and some HVAC upgrades in locations that are not part of the referendum. That's for Sandmeyer and Caldwell. Walton and FMG are still being reviewed, so that's why you don't see them right now. We're adding some more things. They've gone in again and did another assessment, so we're trying to maximize this incentive. As you can see, it behooves the district to enter into this type of program because it's a significant cost savings going through this program.
And as we're moving through all of our HVAC, to be able to say that our boilers have also been replaced at the same time is just moving us a lot closer to, first of all, overall energy efficiency. And we're doing it at the same time where we have been doing significant shifts on our back end in terms of the infrastructure. And so it was a great opportunity, and we're very grateful that Ms. Callis and the team in the Buildings and Grounds Department took advantage of it. Next, you'll just note that we're continuing, we're in final adequacy review for the biology lab conversion. What does that mean? That means the state's looking at our documents so that we can take what is currently a storage room and update it into another science lab. So really excited that in the same paragraph that we're talking about something like boilers, we're still talking about classroom space. And lastly, you can see that Edward Walton Courtyard improvements. This has been going on for 2 years at least. Yeah, I'm thinking 2 years. So really glad to see that tonight we're awarding, or we propose to award that bid to have that work commence. And know that that'll help us move forward. I know that there's a lot of families of Walton that would really like to see that space used in lots of different ways, and this will be a really important first step to doing that. We know at the end of this week, I believe, Ramadan begins. So for our families in our community that celebrate it, we wish you a Ramadan Kareem, or a blessed Ramadan, and hope that your fasts are productive and peaceful. And I am going to right now stop this, and then we'll come back to it at the end. And with that, I conclude the superintendent's report for this evening.
Move to approve the superintendent's report.
Moved by Mrs. Rubin, seconded by Mrs. Murphy. Any discussion?
For the the Walton Courtyard area, I know we're changing a lot of things. Will there still be like shaded area for the kids inside there for the plant, like the plans that they have? Will there, 'cause I know they have the gazebos there now.
Oh,
Like, are they being removed, or are they gonna have shaded areas, gonna be a place for kids to kind of
so
do that,
so the
sitting around?
gazebos are there.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if we know conclusively. I believe that they're going to have to be moved. We know that. I don't know if they'll be able to. There's some things we don't know. Michelle, do you want to? I know that we were at the I don't know. I don't know if you have any updates from the I don't know.
It's a full gut. It needs completely new leveling. If you've been there, you'd understand. And it includes new gutters, all new drainage. So everything needs to be moved out. If it's in good shape, once they move, we could put them back. But right now, it's all contingent on where it goes.
How are they bringing the equipment in there? Over?
Over.
With a crane?
Yes.
What day will that be, so we all can watch it?
No, so
Anything that needs to get excavated?
So there is a path from the courtyard out, but if it's a huge equipment, it will be craned over. That's why no kids could be in the building.
And when, is it gonna start this school year?
This summer. It's
Oh,
a
this
summer job.
So it won't impact kids being able to use the courtyard,
Oh, I hope not.
at least not this school year.
Yeah, we're not, well, all of our summer programs, there'll be no summer programs at Walton
At
this year. So primarily just to be
And it
able to
won't
keep,
impact play this school year for recess.
no,
Great.
not to our knowledge. I mean, I'm gonna say next year, all bets are off. Like, we need to get this work done. We're working to get it done. Whether it's ready in September, I'm gonna hope that the contractor holds their end of the bargain, so to speak. To come back to your question, if they can remove the gazebos and they're in good shape, then they'll do that. If they can't, then they're gonna go and we'll have to come back. We're not adding, right now, these plans don't include any additional structures.
Dealing with
The infrastructure, yeah. yeah.
It's not like any kind of planning.
No, right,
area,
at
but
this
okay,
point,
that's what-
no,
okay.
I mean, that, and it's a little, I think we've spoken about it before, but this ended up coming, at significantly more than we had originally budgeted for. So, we know that the work that needs to get done is significant, and the fact that the way that the courtyard is built adds a lot to that because the need for a crane to bring in other equipment. So right now, we're just trying to get it so that we can have a functional, like a functional space that's not waterlogged as much as this is, because we lose so much time of usage in that space because of because the drainage is so poor. So, and I'll also say, based on the excavation of the playground that we'd had to do, that we did last year, it would not, we would be, we're expecting that this may not be as straightforward, and we have to prepare for that. We are hopeful, but we just want to make sure everybody in the community knows we're not trying to be Pollyanna about it. It's just work that has to be done. So.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The superintendent's report is accepted and approved as presented. Thanks. I'm tongue-tied today. Okay, we will move into public session on agenda items. So it is the policy of this board that inappropriate comments regarding specific individuals should not be made during the public portion of this meeting. Members of the public should be advised that to the extent they defame any employee of this district or member of this community, the board disclaims any liability if you are involved in a civil suit for defamation. As a reminder, all of the board policies and regulations related to public participation in board meetings shall remain in effect, including but not limited to a 3-minute limit. If anyone would like to come and speak on any agenda items, please do so. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the business portion of the meeting. Mrs. Rubin, would you please call board governance policy and communications?
I move to approve items 1 through 14 with a roll call vote, please. Under-
It's 15. Sorry, that's a typo. And addenda.
And an addenda number 1,
15.
15.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh. Okay. So 1
Want me to
15
redo that?
and 32.
1 through 15 and addenda items,
32.
32.
Okay. Okay, moved by Mrs. Rubin, seconded by Mrs. Murphy. Is there any discussion on these items?
I just have one question on number 15. These revised rates are due to the retro pay when the contract got settled? Cool, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Mrs. Callis, would you please call the roll?
Vice President Rubin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Murphy? Yes. Mrs. Rinaldi?
Yes.
Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
Mrs. Turnbull?
Yes on all except number 7, I abstain.
Oh, yeah, you do. Yeah.
Hillary, I abstain from number 7 as well.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
No, that's,
Mrs. Wishna
Yes.
and President Gamerican.
yes, motion passes. Okay, Mrs. Turnbull, would you please call school administration, academic programs, and athletics?
No. There we are. I'd like to approve items 16 through 21 with a roll call vote.
Moved by Mrs. Turnbull and seconded by Mrs. Murphy. Any discussion on these items? Okay, Mrs. Callis, would you please call the roll?
Vice President Rubin,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez, sorry. Mrs. Kelly, Mrs. Murphy.
You don't want her.
Mrs. Rinaldi,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Turnbull,
Yes.
Mrs. Wishna,
Yes.
and President Gamerican.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Silva, would you please call finance, facilities, and security?
Sure. I move to approve items 22 through 31 with a roll call vote.
Moved by Mrs. Silva and seconded by Mrs. Murphy. Any discussion on these items? Mrs. Rubin, yeah? She has a question.
The superintendent board, I zoomed in too much and I don't even know if I'm on this area. I'll go back to it for old business.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh, I don't know if it was under this section, actually.
It was finance.
No, it was,
go back
it was
during old
under school administration, academic programs, and
I'll go back.
athletics. Okay, okay, Mrs. Callis, would you please call the roll?
Vice President Rubin,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Murphy, Mrs. Rinaldi,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Turnbull,
Yes.
Mrs. Wishna,
Yes.
and President Gamerican.
Yes, motion passes. Okay. Okay, we will now return to open public session, and this is on any topic of interest. The same rules apply. If anyone is interested in speaking or addressing the board. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming anyway. We will now move on to new business, which is going to be our guest for board member ethics training, Ms. Cleary. Hi.
Wait.
Yes?
Before she talks, can I just say something for new business in case we lose anyone who doesn't want to listen to this online or anything else? Can I? Because it's new business.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to remind everyone that the PTSO has a meeting coming up on March 11th. So anyone, high school, thank you.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Because we
But-
may not have spectators.
Well, I'm
worried.
worried, yeah, I'm gonna, people
Okay.
might leave our
Sorry.
presentation. I'm worried
Thank
about
you.
that.
And-
I mean, I'm gonna sit on the edge of my seat for it, but just in case.
You're
Yeah.
going to sit on the edge of your
Yes.
seat because there is a special visitor at that PTA meeting. Do you
Oh,
know
really?
who it is?
No. Who is our special?
it
Me!
you?
Oh, you! Oh, I wasn't told that. Well, then
All right.
definitely everyone should
All
show.
right, yeah. I've been invited to join and answer questions and do updates. So just really, for most people, that is not a special guest, but I thought I would.
Does anyone else have anything to share prior to our welcoming our guests? Okay, so Ms. Cleary from the NJSBA, our field service representative, thank you for coming to enlighten us tonight. We're all yours.
I'm gonna go. I'm your clicker. Is that okay? Or I can give it
that
to
is
Michelle
fine.
if you want to be. I can be the clicker. It's very. It's actually very. It makes me. It does. I do find it anxiety. In case I like. All right,
Okay,
so you can do like a,
I'll say next, and if you
you're
can.
welcome to do it in any way that you choose, and I already apologize if I mess up in some way.
Oh, not at all. So it's a pleasure to be with you. I am Jean Cleary, your field service representative from New Jersey School Boards Association. And tonight we're going to take a look at ethics, which, as board members know, it's so important that you're going to hear it again and again. New board members who are there new board members here this year? Yes, I thought so. Okay. So if you haven't already done Governance 1 or you have, it'll be covered in there as well. You're going to hear it again. That's how important it is. So we just want to have everyone, even as a refresher, who may have been through this before, just consider some of the slides and how they may impact the work that you do, because it's so important. So if we could just move to the next slide. I have to begin by just saying that this is educational training, and that if you have specific questions about anything that we covered tonight, you really should be addressing them to your board attorney, who's the person who can best assist you and guide you. So if we go to the next slide. So the School Ethics Act is in place to make sure it recognizes that the conduct of board members and lead administrators in the district is really important to hold the confidence of the people and the respect of the people. So because of that, board members and administration must avoid any conduct which is in violation of the public trust, or which would create a justifiable impression to the public that their trust is being broken. And that's an important distinction, because it's not only your actions, but it's also the impression that you leave with the community. So we have to remember that it's not whether we think we can be objective about something, it's really the way members of your community will feel. So the purpose of the School Ethics Act is that there's a legislative intent to ensure that the act ensures and preserves public confidence in the integrity of school officials. So board members are actually school officials, and because of that, you need to hold yourself to the standards that are outlined that we're going to review. And because you are being held to standards, it's recognized by the School Ethics Commission that you need some guidance, which we're going to look at in the presentation tonight for your actions. And also there needs to be a disciplinary mechanism in place so that when there are violations, there's a consistent way to address them. So I also want to point out that the things that we will talk about tonight, the things you have to be in compliance with, are really looked at as a minimum set of ethical standards. So we really always try to hold ourselves to the highest standards, because what's at stake is the community's understanding and support for you as a board, with your focus, of course, being as a team with the superintendent to be focused on student achievement. And that's really why we're here. So next slide, please. So the provisions of the Act are really towards accountability. So both board members and lead administrators, such as the superintendent, have to comply with certain aspects of the Act. Board members have to meet with all of these: the Code of Ethics, mandatory training, prohibited acts, and disclosure statements. But administrators, lead administrators, have to comply with the prohibited acts and disclosure statements. Next one, please. So who enforces the Act? The School Ethics Commission is composed of 9 members that are appointed by the governor. No more than 5 can be from one political party. And the composition of it is that there are 5 non-school officials, 2 school board members, and 2 school administrators. And an important thing to take note of is that right now, the 2 school board member positions and 1 of the school administrators are actually vacant. So when we think about the commission that will be charged with reviewing cases that come before it, we're talking about it being down to 6 members, 5 of whom are non-school officials. Okay, next slide. So we're going to look at the things that you have to know, those 4 things that I mentioned a moment ago, and one of them is the financial and personal, as well as relative disclosure statements. So for new school officials, whether you're a new hire, an administrative hire, or you're a new board member, you have to complete those within 90 days, and I heard that mentioned earlier tonight. Returning officials, whether you're a returning board member or administrator, have until April 30th. And while it's really very nice of the BA to remind you of that, you actually have, you hold the responsibility of making sure that you're in compliance with it. So that's a nice thing to do, but we each have to be holding ourselves accountable to doing that. So we'll talk about mandatory training. So board members are required to comply with mandatory training. And one thing, especially for new board members to be aware of, is New Jersey School Boards is an association of boards of education, and we exist to do these types of training and provide resources and support for board members so that you're best prepared to focus on student achievement for your children in this district. But we are required, because we're recognized as the association tasked with providing the mandatory training, that we have to inform the Ethics Commission for anyone who's out of compliance with their training. The Ethics Commission then imposes any kind of penalty that needs to be imposed. So a quick review is that in the first 90 days when you're first elected, you have to take Governance 1. Which also is new board member orientation, basic knowledge and skills. It'll go over the responsibilities that you hold, especially under the governance section for NJQSAC, which is the self-monitoring system where every 3rd year it's someone comes in and reviews all of the records, make sure you're in compliance with everything you need to be doing. You'll get trained in HIB, harassment, intimidation, and bullying. You'll receive your training on the superintendent's evaluation, which is something that as board members, it's one of your most important functions. Everyone should be participating in that evaluation annually for the superintendent, unless, of course, you have a recognized conflict that you cannot participate. You'll also learn about the Open Public Meetings Act, actually why your board meeting tonight is conducted the way that it is, and, of course, Code of Ethics training. By the end of year 2, you will have to take Governance 2 for a deeper look at finance and policy. Governance 3, by the end of year 3, will go deeper into student achievement and labor relations. And every year following either appointment or re-election, you're required to take Governance 4 so that you have the most recent legal updates. So that will inform you when you're making decisions. So we do provide the training in multiple ways. That's fine. We provide it in multiple ways. You should coordinate with the BA who has to register you for those and let her know which one you prefer, whether to be in person, live, virtual, or self-paced study, so that you get registered appropriately and are in compliance. So when board members, we're going to look. It's kind of a little bit out of order, but they create this slide set every year from New Jersey School Board. So when we look at being in compliance with the ethics code that we're going to look at in the next slides, one of the things is sometimes we have questions. We intend to do the right thing, but we don't know what the right thing is. So we can, any school official or your board attorney on your behalf can ask the School Ethics Commission for an advisory opinion about a future action that you would take and whether or not that would create a violation or there would be any jeopardy there. If 6 members of the commission agree, and right now there are only 6 as I mentioned, if 6 of them agree that there's value in both the question and answer for other school board members across the state, they can choose to make those opinions public for our reference, and that's how we have that information available as a resource. Any identifying information about you or your district is removed. Really, it's just meant so that we can all learn from those questions and answers. Next slide, please. So the School Ethics Commission is recognized as the body that has that administrative authority to determine if conduct is in violation of the act and will make a recommendation to you. If you ask for an advisory opinion, what they provide to you, you are expected to follow the guidance that you receive. And we have the picture of the police officer up there because it's akin to an officer telling you that some action you may take may be in violation. You, of course, have free will and can choose not to follow that direction, but there will be consequences. So on the bottom, there's a hyperlink, and I believe this was shared with the board members, right? So your hyperlinks will work to bring you where you can look at those. If you have a question, the question you posed might actually have been answered already, so that's available to you. Next slide, please.
It's in the board folder.
Okay, so on this slide, we're looking at advisory opinions. I'm not going to read through all of them because I know you have access to them, but it is helpful I just picked one or two on a slide just to talk about. Pardon me. I do want to just make everyone aware that when you look at the hyperlink in the top, it'll say, the top one says A14-24, just so you know what you're looking at. That means advisory opinion case 14 in the year 24. And it was posed, if we look at the second one down, actually, A13-24, it was posed, can a board member participate in negotiations if they have an aunt employed in the district who's not a member of the local union? So I'm using this as an example because these are things that oftentimes you may see yourself in that position. These are generally common questions that people have. And it was determined, the summary there that was provided, the SEC said a member with a relative working in the district is unable to participate in any part of negotiations. And that would be even if their relative is has a non-union contract. So in the past, I was actually an administrator in a school district. I wasn't part of the union. But my contract would have been based off similar terms to what was actually in the contracts with the union. The very bottom one, AO724, a board member asked, they co-owned a business and happened to be an ice cream shop, if they could participate in a fundraising request to support the PTO and clubs through hosting events and advertising. So we can recognize that an intent from somebody that sits on the board and has probably been very involved in the schools wants to use that to the benefit of students. But interestingly, the School Ethics Commission came back and said that services provided to the PTO, district families, and district organizations would violate the act. And the reason for that is advertising solicitations open to the public at large wouldn't, but because this would have been just through the board member, and their business may actually benefit by goodwill, right? If not monetary means. So it's a violation. You can't, as a board member, have any business in the community where you serve. That's before the board. Next slide, please. So in the second one down, AO524, can a board member who received and used an endorsement from the local union in their campaign material participate in policy matters relevant to union members? So here the SEC advised that considering the type and level of union support that had been provided, and because there was an absence of any kind of financial benefit, it didn't pose a per se conflict. But it's important that these are only summaries, so it's really helpful if you do have a chance, if it seems similar, to go on and read what was behind it. That board member did recognize and agree not to participate in any negotiations within the year that they had received the support. So that was an important distinction there. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of who may file an ethics complaint, really anyone can. The School Ethics Commission considers whether the facts and the circumstances would lead a reasonable person from the community to believe the act has been violated. And remembering what I said when I started, the purpose is really so that we're always holding the public's trust in the actions that we take. So some things to know are that an ethics violation has to be filed within 180 days of the alleged violation, and they have to assert the specific section or sections of the act that they feel were violated, and they have to provide factual evidence that allows the Ethics Commission to review that in full and make a determination. Next slide. So if a penalty is determined through the School Ethics Commission, they can make 4-level recommendations to the commissioner. The first one is a reprimand, where it's a rebuke by the commissioner informing you that it is actually a violation and you shouldn't do that again. The next level is a censure, however, where that's a formal disapproval, and the commissioner requires that it's publicized through a resolution, so your name is made public and the details of that are made public. A further level of violation could be found that would lead to a suspension. So the Ethics Commission would make a recommendation to the commissioner that the code was violated in one or more places, and that the evidence presented supports suspension for some set number of days, where a board member would not be able to participate in any board business, discussion, votes, or being participant in any way. Finally, a removal is the most serious one, which is for egregious acts. And for board members, it would mean the removal from the board, and for any lead administrators required to be in compliance, it would mean automatic termination of employment. Next slide, please. So on the next slides, I am going to run through A through J to prepare you of what the code is. Just pointing out that on the bottom of the slide where it says standards, that's actually indicating what factual evidence would have to be presented to support a violation claiming that it happened in this section, okay? So the first one is that you'll uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools, and that desired changes are brought about only through legal and ethical procedures. So we know that you have your policy manuals and you have things in place that guide you and how you do them. That's pretty much the very first one. So the second, please. So B says that you'll make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. And it's important that we know when we're a candidate and we want to come onto the board, we have a different lens that we're approaching topics with, and we may be focused on subsets of students, but once you are a board member and you're taking the oath and you're being guided by this, you need to always recognize that you have to be acting in the best interest of all of your students. Next, please. So C really kind of comes down to the heart of what board members need to remember, is that you'll confine your board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal, which are the 3 functions of you as board members. And you'll help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. So you do that through your process of when you want to create or amend policies, where you have a policy first reading, then you give an opportunity for the public to weigh in or anyone who's going to be affected by them before you pass those. The next one, please. You will carry out your responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with fellow board members, see that they are well run. And I think this is something that the first part of, I think we all know that, right? We all hear it over and over again, that we don't administer the schools, the superintendent administers the schools. But the second part is really, really crucial as well, that together with your fellow board members, you see that they are well run. Because as school officials, the board has authority, but as an individual board member, you don't have 1/9 of authority. You have no authority beyond what any other citizen in the community has. So you have to work in concert with your fellow board members, under that authority that's been granted through the Department of Education, through the legislature, and up to the Constitution of the state that empowers the board to act. So it's important to keep those things together. Next slide, please. In E, I will recognize that the authority rests with the Board of Education and make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board. And this can touch on things about your behavior in terms of remembering that you need to hold confidential things that would injure any individual or the schools, right? If you operate in a committee structure and you're working on something and researching something, if the information gets out and is shared prior to the time where it's really ready for public consumption and discussion, that can really injure the working of the board, and it can cause distrust in the community because they're hearing multiple things that aren't clear. And that takes away from our attention on student achievement. So we want to avoid those things. So F, please. Next one. You'll refuse to surrender your independent judgment to special interests or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or the gain of friends. Personal gain can also look like if you are involved in other organizations, making decisions that would have someone that you'd benefit by the goodwill or being seen in a different light without really putting student interest first. That's really what has to guide all the actions that you take. So you have to be really committed to that. Next, please. That you'll hold confidential all matters, as I said, pertaining to the schools, which could injure individuals or the functioning of the schools by creating confusion. And you'll provide accurate information in concert with your fellow board members and interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its schools. So again, not acting as an individual, but acting along with fellow members of the board so that you have one united message and there's clarity and high efficiency in the work that you're doing as a team to support students. Next, please. That you'll vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after the consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. So the superintendent, as the day-to-day executive running the district, as well as the educational leader in the district, is really best suited to make the recommendations, the best recommendations to fill positions regarding who's available and who is going to meet the needs of the schools and the students best. So she would make recommendations to you as a board. There are certain things that are appropriate that you can ask, and you can look at your policies, which will speak to that, about what is appropriate to ask when you're considering recommendations. But at no time is it appropriate for board members to suggest who should be hired. Next, please. That you'll support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. So we know that curriculum has to be aligned, for instance, with New Jersey student learning standards. At times, there have been conversations and feelings about different things that are included in curriculum that have to be brought into the schools. And it's okay, right? Even as board members, you're still human beings. You can still have your personal opinion about something, but it's very, very important to ensure that personnel who are appropriately acting and in compliance with what they are expected to do are supported by the board. And we refrain from discussions which would undermine that work. Next, please. And that you'll refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on the complaints at public meetings only after the failure of an administrative solution. And this one is so important because I don't know, I was a board member for 6 years. I don't know that you can be a board member in your community and not get approached by people who have concerns, who are seeing you in a role of responsibility. They just want a solution to their problem and they bring it to you. This really speaks to the need for understanding your chain of command and directing that person to the proper person on the chain of command the person closest to the issue they're having. So if it's classroom, of course, the teacher. If they say, well, that didn't work for me, the principal, perhaps a supervisor, to the superintendent. It's inappropriate to have any discussions that sound anything like, I'll look into it, I'll get back to you. That is you acting as an individual, which goes against the code of ethics. And yet we understand that, being of the community, you want to be sensitive when people are coming to you with a concern. So it's okay to state that, as a board member, I really can't be involved in this, but I'd recommend that you talk to this next person. Now, there are times when we recognize that the administrative solution that was provided is not acceptable to the party. And only after it goes through the entire chain of command and through the superintendent's office, if there's still no acceptance of that administrative solution, it comes before the full board. And you'll take a vote, you'll have discussion and take a vote on it then. But if you've had prior discussions with that individual on that topic, you would have to recuse yourself. So just keep that in mind and really stay faithful to recommending to the chain of command. And another thing under the rule of no surprises, if you have that conversation and you recommend someone to chain of command, let your superintendent know so that she can be prepared in case she needs to be involved and she isn't caught off guard. Next slide, please. So cases related to the code of ethics. I'm sorry, please.
As a reminder to the general public who might be listening, you can find, we don't call it a chain of command, we call it the chain of communication.
Thank you.
But that document is available on our website under the Board of Education. So should anybody be interested in what that looks like, it's gone through a few iterations, so
Yes,
it's
thank
available.
you. That's great to have it on the website because very often people just don't know and they're concerned and they're worried and they just want to get to someone who can help them. So it's wonderful to have that posted. For cases related, if we go to the next slide, related to the code of ethics, here the hyperlink that's available there, C is for case. The case number, the second one on the bottom, is 24-22, 22 being the year. Now, cases are not advisory opinions, which have a quick turnaround generally. Cases can take quite a while to run through the system, depending on the nature of what's involved in that case and the back and forth. But these are things that have been recently decided. So in the second one, a member was involved in ongoing efforts to reverse an HIB and student code of conduct violation in their own child's record, and made contacts that started with the superintendent and the board, then went to individual board members, and finally was directed at the board council for guidance on how she could get these things changed. This was a violation because it was unrelated to her duties as a board member, and it was seeking to reverse something that had been decided appropriately under the authority of the superintendent. So the board was, it was found that they were trying to influence the board members and could compromise the board, right? Your relationships and being able to work well together as a team are incredibly important. So what we see here is in parentheses C, D, and E, that actually directs you to the parts of the code that we just went through, which were violated, and reprimand was recommended by the School Ethics Commission. So next slide. Yeah, I think we're just, can you go to the next slide? I didn't really want to read through all of the cases for you. I will touch on this one though, interestingly, because a 15-year board member, right, just goes to show you that anyone is capable of bad judgment at times, as hard as we work against that. But a board member with 15 years of experience took inappropriate action that was beyond the role of a board member. The action was found to usurp the authority of the superintendent, who's responsible for making disciplinary recommendations. And what this board member did was go to the home of the employee who was recommended for that by the superintendent, picked up a letter, presented it to the other board members, to the BA, told the BA not to share it with the superintendent, and then went on to speak about the case and go against the superintendent's recommendation. And it was seen as being pretty egregious and outside the role of a board member. Clearly, that board member had personal interest in the case to have gone to take those actions to go so far. When you have a personal conflict, you're required to recuse yourself. So it was a recommended suspension for 60 days. And the reason it says recommended suspension is because that's what School Ethics Commission has sent to the commissioner, who now needs to just finalize that and act. Next slide, please. Yeah, we'll go to the next one. Okay, so speaking about recusal and understanding how it differs from abstention. So if you recognize, as that board member who I just spoke about in that last case, right, had a personal interest and that presents a conflict, but conflicts can come from numerous things, which we're going to look at on the next slide. But if you do have a conflict, the appropriate way to recognize that is to formally disqualify and remove yourself from participating in any discussion or voting on that topic. And that is by recusing yourself. And how it differs from abstention is recusal memorializes it. You're actually stating for the public, so that you maintain public confidence, that you recognize you have a conflict, and because of that, you're not participating. An abstention, while we as board members always try to be prepared for our meetings, there are times when something happens and we just don't feel that we can participate in a vote or discussion because we're not prepared, and you can abstain from it. But abstention doesn't hold the weight of recusal, so when you have a conflict, you really need to be recusing yourself. Recusal can affect the quorum present, and votes and your board council can guide you on the effect that that might have. Next slide, please. So, prohibited acts. This is clearly just a short version for you to look at, but the hyperlink is up there to see full content. This is really just a quick excerpt. So we were talking about recusal when you have a conflict. These are the things that would present that conflict. So if there's a benefit to you as a school official or your immediate family due to any of these conditions, business interests or professional activity, which would be seen as in conflict, use of position to secure unwarranted privileges, advantages, or employment. That can extend to others beyond your immediate family. Remember, all of this exists to maintain public trust in how we act, so they are very case-specific when violations are looked into and determined. Financial involvement that may impair objectivity, service or employment that may prejudice independent judgment, gifts, favors, or anything of the sort that has the intent to influence, and financial gain. So you as board members may never represent any other party before the board in the district in matters that are before the board. You are first and foremost here as a board participant on the board to look out for the interests of the board as they reflect what's best for students and staying focused on student achievement. There are times when something happens and you benefit from something that everyone is benefiting from. So if it's not specific just to you, it may not be a violation. So things really come down to degree at times. And again, this is for educational purposes. If you have any questions about anything, you should always be directing that to the board attorney before you take any action, right, to protect yourself and the board. Next, please. So when we talk about benefit, anything that has a benefit which causes a conflict, the ethics regulations define benefit as a direct or indirect advantage, profit, privilege, or gain, whether personal, financial, or otherwise. And that very last part, or otherwise, clearly leaves the door open, right, for interpretation by the commission. It's what a reasonable member of the public would think, and not whether or not you think you could still be objective, right? So it's really how the community would see that. This case on the bottom, an acting superintendent had put forward a list of substitute names for approval by the board, and on the list of 160 names was her son to be on the substitute list. And it was caught and brought before the Ethics Commission, who found that, of course, there would be a benefit to a family member, right, by being on that list. And due to that, it was reasonably could be seen as impairing her objectivity, and it was determined to be a reprimand. Next slide, please. So in conflict benefits cases, the first one here, I'm sorry, the first one here, CO 321, a member is a president of the PSA, the Parents Staff Association, and owns a spirit wear company, and wanted to donate merchandise as a fundraiser, and was asking the principal of the school to get the word out, and you would go to his website. This is a board member. Go to his website so that you could purchase the materials, and the money would be going to the fundraiser. And that was recommended for a reprimand because it would compromise family members who may not want to participate, and it could put that principal in a position where they felt they needed to work on something that put parents in a position that they didn't support. And any issue that came up about employment for that principal could be looked at as suspect if that board member participated, right? If they had a difference of opinion. So that's something that we have to avoid as board members. Next slide, please. So relationship definitions in the material that went out, I believe you might have already signed off on your ethics, but now you have a copy of it to refer to. The third sheet that I gave you is actually a list of relationships, so that's a referral sheet that you can use going forward. And interesting to note that the term relative doesn't appear in the prohibited acts or the code of ethics, but those actually can create conflicts. So even though that word doesn't appear there, as relative doesn't appear there, the intent is behind it. So that's why you need to always consult and ask that question if you believe that there's a conflict through relative. Next, please. So what the board needs to know about hiring and personnel: you may never hire a relative of a board member or the chief school administrator, the superintendent. However, if a relative already works in the district, an administrator may not exercise direct or indirect authority over their relative, which means that no one in that chain of command, right, they can't have any participation in anything to do with that. A board member may not take part in employment matters concerning the superintendent or any supervisors in the chain of command from where their relative is. And a board member may not take part in the search, selection, or vote to hire a new superintendent, or the annual evaluations, or post-hiring, or any contract discussions at any time if you have a family member that works in the district. Next slide, please. So here we have a grid just to put the information here about whether or not you can participate in collective bargaining. The left just mentions the relationship to you as a board member, whether or not the individual works in the district or is participating in a statewide teachers union outside of your local district. It has to do with the level of their involvement if they're outside of your district. Whether or not you can then participate in negotiations, and even if you can't, can you ratify the contract? So that's just a reference sheet for your information. Next slide. Campaigns and collective bargaining. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but board members who receive endorsements may be conflicted from collective bargaining negotiations if the negotiations occur within the same year, right? And that would be reasonable because members of the community may think, oh, well, you're supporting something because those people supported you. Just general endorsement by local, state, or national unions doesn't create a per se conflict. So, you know, there are certain things that you can do, but the sensitivity lies within involving yourself in negotiations in that first year where you've received their endorsement. Next slide. So, impact on committee assignments when a relative works in district. So an advisory opinion was sought by a board president who had their child working in the district as an instructional assistant. And it was determined, we know that a board president holds the authority to assign individuals to committees and the chair of those committees as well, and can also, as long as it's not a quorum, sit in on committee meetings. But because they had a child that worked in the district, they were told that they may not participate in anything that directly or indirectly has anything to do that could touch on that family member's employment in any way. So that includes, but it's not limited to, the personnel committee, negotiations, instructional committees, and finance committees. It can also affect if you had perhaps another ad hoc committee that was looking into something, depending on the nature of that. So it's important to know that. Similarly, there's here mentioned that a board member had a spouse working in the IT department, and very similarly, could not participate in any committees because of that. Anything that could be conceived as touching upon the spouse's employment in any way. There, on the bottom, was an interesting case where a domestic partner is a transportation specialist, and the board member wanted to be on the transportation committee, and they were actually told that they shouldn't be. But there was a lot of back and forth in that case, and questions that came up. So sometimes these things can be really very multi-layered, so it's not always a straight answer. So advice of counsel defense for penalties. I just had this in a district recently. So if a penalty is found, advice of counsel cannot remove a penalty, but it may help mitigate the level of penalty that you receive. But to have it even considered for mitigating the penalty, four things have to be, these four prerequisite factors have to be in place. The advice was received prior to taking any action. The individual that offered the advice to you was actually authorized to do so. So think board attorney, not the neighbor who lives up the block who's an attorney. All pertinent facts and circumstances were disclosed, not just telling the parts that make you look good, but telling that person all of the facts and all of the things that they need to consider, and that you complied with all of the advice received. So if you were told 1, 2, or 3 things to do or not to do, and you only did some of them or didn't do some of them, then you can't use this as a defense. And it is extremely fact and case specific, so it really isn't a get out of jail free card, so you really want to avoid those things that would get you in this situation. Next slide, please. Volunteering in schools for board members is often a challenge because it's recognized that board members are very often very involved in the communities and in the schools. It's kind of maybe what led you here in the first place. So the question becomes, what's appropriate and to what degree? So the School Ethics Commission doesn't say that you can't volunteer in schools. I would remind you that the biggest volunteer you could possibly be doing in schools is what you're doing right now as board members, right? So thank you for doing it. The School Ethics Commission just considers the degree of involvement and authority. So your involvement with staff and students, the frequency of that involvement, and the authority that you have to both give and receive directions for both staff and students, and the authority that you would have over directing resources and funds. So when we look at the Code of Ethics under C, where you are addressing confining your board actions to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, if you're actively present in the schools, for a heightened involvement with great frequency, for things that school personnel would be handling, and you're coming into contact often and frequently with parents, teachers, and students, that would likely be leading to a violation. If you, under D, we recognize not to administer the schools, and again, if you are giving and receiving directions, think about if just a member of the community looks and sees you there all the time, and you're just walking around the halls and you're involved a lot, and they would confuse you with a staff member, that's too much, and that's going to lead to violations. And E, nor take any private action that may compromise the board. So significant involvement in school events where you're becoming very familiar with staff and becoming almost like colleagues with staff presents opportunities for violation, because there are times when you're going to have to vote on things that affect their employment. And it would be reasonable to assume that we're not as objective when we are with our friends. And if the public is seeing that and believing that there's a friend relationship there, it calls into question your ability to be objective. Next slide, please. So the School Ethics Commission provides through their advisory opinions things that are considered inherent violations. So if you have a spouse that works in the district and is running the theater program, and you're coming in and you're always there, and you're in contact with students and staff, and maybe telling the janitor where you need things to be placed and all of those things, that's an inherent violation because you're acting in a way that's administering the school. If you are a leader of a student club, perhaps you were doing that to volunteer prior to being a board member, your ongoing contact with students would be a violation, and you can't participate in that anymore as a sitting board member. And if you're the volunteer coach for the football team, working alongside both staff and students, and having those conversations and directing activities, again, inherent violation. Other things that wouldn't be an inherent violation, those things that we do, read across America, maybe we go into the schools at one point for that, and then maybe you have a child in the school district and you want to chaperone their trip later in that year. Those things aren't really connected. You're not really doing it over and over again. Your role and responsibility around things is very limited, not likely to be a violation. If you're just that person, God bless you to be the person who loads and unloads marching band equipment to get the kids back and forth to where they need to go, and you're not having any, you're not giving and taking direction from students and staff, and you're just doing the labor, you're probably fine. And the one that I really want to talk to you about, it sometimes impacts members. I personally came up through PTA before I was on the board. If you are holding authority as just an executive who maybe sets plans but not having ongoing interaction with staff and leadership in the schools, you may be able to do that. It's really, again, to the level of how much you're around the students and the staff. It's really a very gray area, so you should seek guidance from your board attorney, because if you're in those events and you're setting up the tables for the book fair and you're there every night of the book fair and you're interacting all the time, that can look very different than if you're just administering, maybe finding the author that's going to come in that the PTA is sponsoring for the students, right? It looks very different. So it's suggested that anytime you're going into the schools, you're letting your superintendent know and be aware of that, so that she is aware and aware of any impact and feedback she may get from staff. And of course, when you're going into schools, refrain from having any discussions about any matters before the board. If people want to know, they have to come out to the meetings. Next slide, please.
It's exciting.
Thank you. I've never heard it called that, but I'll take it. So another thing that won't go away and we all live with is social media, but it presents certain challenges to board members. When you make a statement, the School Ethics Commission is really going to consider the content, substance, and context of the statement that you're making to determine if there is a violation from using social media. So they're looking for, is there a nexus between what you're posting and your role as a member of the board? So the two things we have here, right? On the left, a member discussed without a disclaimer a policy she moved to abolish, indicating it was reviewed by the board, council, and opposed by 4 board members. So that's clearly talking about board work, right? Didn't use a disclaimer, and that was found to be a violation. The other side, there was no nexus found. A board member just posted on a personal social media site 3 pictures of the 3 people running as candidates for the Board of Education, didn't even make a statement about it. You could draw your own conclusions. So they felt that there was no real nexus to say that they were coming out speaking for or against anyone, just kind of making people alert to the fact that their faces were there. Next page, please. So the School Ethics Commission strongly recommends using a disclaimer that helps the public to determine who you're speaking for, yourself as an individual, and that you're not speaking for the board, which would be inappropriate because only the board president should be speaking for the board. And also you shouldn't be speaking in an official capacity of any business before the board or in anything to do with your role as a board member. So the disclaimer that's provided in bold and italics is actually the way they recommend you use it if you are going to make a statement on social media. And the important thing about this is that it really consists of 2 parts. To not only say in the first part that the following statements are made in my capacity as a private citizen and not in my capacity as a board member, right? That's great. The important thing is to also include the second part, which clarifies that these statements are also not representative of the board or its individual members and solely represent my own personal opinion. So when failure to use that second part was a case was considered and the individual didn't use that second part, they felt that it confused members of the public who, even though you were saying it was your personal opinion, they look at you as a board member, they believe you have access to information, which is true, that they don't always have, and would be confused by that. And it could imply that other board members, that you were speaking for the board and other board members were agreeing with you. So it puts other board members in a difficult spot, and because of that, it was found to be a violation. Next slide, please. So questions that we often get about disclaimers, it doesn't automatically protect you. As I mentioned before, it really has to do with content, context, and the specifics of what is stated. Would it cause a reasonable member of the public to be confused? It doesn't have to do with how you feel you're able to be objective, but how other people will see it. We want the community to always retain faith in you as school officials, that your focus is on students and student achievement, and that you're serving in their best interest in the most efficient and expedient way. If you don't use a disclaimer, it also doesn't automatically mean you're in violation. It really has to do with content. So if you're just, saying that was a great theater performance the kids did the other night, you're probably going to be fine. And must I use the exact disclaimer? I would say you are not required to use the exact disclaimer, but the School Ethics Commission is providing that disclaimer to you in italics and bold, so they will be the ones to determine if you're in violation, so it might be a good idea to use what they're putting out there as their recommendation. Next slide, please. So just general guidance when it comes to social media, and because you do have new board members here, if you are using social media as a candidate, you have to stop doing that now. You now are held to a different standard as a board member, so you don't give up your right as a citizen for free speech, but you now have these other things that you are responsible for in conducting yourself, so it restricts you. So if you like or share something from your personal account, it's generally not going to be problematic unless it could be construed as business before the board. And another thing to just really be aware of is that you really shouldn't be participating in private groups on social media. And you should really think twice about being an administrator for any social media platform group, because anything you allow on as an administrator on a website, or anything you deny, you could be held accountable for those viewpoints that you either supported or didn't support and led on. So by being in the role of an administrator on a social media site, you could be held accountable not only for what you say or don't say, but what other people say or don't say. So just to be aware of that. So next slide. So you made it through. So really, I do mean it as a former board member myself. I know how rewarding it is, but I also know how challenging it is. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and meet with all of you and for your attention to it. Please, on this or anything else, as a field service representative that works with your district, I'm here to be a resource for you to answer any questions, so don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you so much for the work that you do for advancing public education for our students.
So this presentation is attached to the superintendent's report just from a public perspective. So should they be interested, when this meeting goes on, and as always, the superintendent's report will be posted separately. So just so that everybody knows.
Thank you. Okay. So back to, sorry, any other new business? Thank you, Ms. Cleary, so much for giving us all of that wisdom. No, I feel like every year we do it, we learn something new, or hear some other crazy story that makes you say, I am not going to do that. Dana, you had something for new business.
Yes, quick question. Separate from personnel, we have an update with the 8th grade plan.
No, I mean, we're continuing as previously planned. The FAQ, of course, was updated in the fall, so it lists and kind of all of the questions that I've gotten recently. Open office hours, same questions. Questions have been pretty consistent, and we've answered them to the best of our ability. We are, of course, waiting for budget. That will have some impact on some pieces of the next steps for the 7th graders that are coming up into 8th grade. But we're looking closely. We're doing scheduling. It's a part of the process. But there's been no change from what we've planned. Everything seems to be moving pretty much, in the right time frame. We'll be looking closer to the spring end of year for bringing those 7th graders in. We're really focusing right now on the regular 8th grade to 9th grade transition. So I believe they've already started those scheduling. I know they've already started scheduling conversations with the incoming 9th graders, and they have on the date, I believe it's March 7th, that those incoming 9th graders will be visiting the school. So we're really concentrating there, and then we'll be moving backwards. And we have some parents that signed up to be a part of a feedback group. I think we had 11 people sign up, one of them being a board member, so we'll have board representation. And in all truth, I think we've all been held in such a state of almost pause while we're waiting for the budget. And there's a lot happening on the state and national stage as it comes to budgets, and so we're looking closely. It's not gonna change what we're doing. I want to be really clear. Yeah, no. We're looking at staffing and scheduling. It's staffing and scheduling. I mean, that's really where it comes down to. And I'll say the primary is one begets the other, so to speak. So that's where we are. But right now, plan is on. We're on course. I know that the principals are working with master schedules and kind of moving onward, so to speak.
Yeah, and Mr. Slate did send around the electives that will be available for those 7th moving into 8th grade.
Great.
Okay, thank you. I just forgot to say also, everyone has to hand in their signed copy. To who?
We did it the first meeting.
At what first meeting? You just got it right now.
No, you got this.
Huh, just kidding. I thought we could, okay. All right, anyway, any other new business or old business? Okay.
Okay. Okay, I would like to just share that I went to my very first Union County Educational Services Commission meeting, and it was a pleasant surprise because I didn't really know what I was going into. I thought I was just sitting there learning information, but I'm actually a board member of the school. So I look forward to learning how Springfield plays a part in UCESC. And there was a guest speaker from Lambert's Mill Academy who came and talked about their program. So that was just like an interesting thing to learn about. And just something in case anybody is wondering, Westfield Zoning Board approved the purchase of 53 Cardinal. I'm not sure if it's Street Road or what. So they're trying to consolidate buildings, so this way the high school is all in one area, and then the autism multi-disability students will be in another location. So instead of being spread out, it'll be confined to a smaller area. So I look forward to sitting on the board. I'm excited. I have my next meeting next Wednesday, so I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Mrs. Rubin, for your time that you're giving to them. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any, does anyone else have new business or old business? Okay, then I would,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
okay, moved by Mr. Fernandez and seconded by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor? Aye. Have a good night. Our next meeting is March 17th,
It is St. Patrick's
Monday, St. Patrick's Day. See you then.
There was no intention there. And in fact, it didn't dawn on me.
I know, who that day?
Are you not available
It
that day?
didn't dawn on me until I was creating the social media happy St. Patrick's Day post that I was gonna put in this board agenda. And then I went and looked at it, I was like, why would I put that in this one?
You can say Erin go brought
If
that day.
it's going to be on this, I got
Maybe I was
maybe I was
I don't wanna hear it.
celebrating.